Hello, everyone. It's July 21st, 2022, and this is the weekly Backdrop Developer Meeting. We get together every week to talk about priorities and issues facing Backdrop Core and beyond. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet, and I'm a core committer for Backdrop CMS. I'm joined here by kind of a lot of the regular crowd. We'll let them do individual introductions. We'll start with Jen, and then we'll go to Tim. All right, Jen's muted. She might not be here. We'll go to Tim and then we'll go to Justin.
Okay, I'm Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim, and I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota today. That's it.
Thanks, Tim. Justin and then Robert.
Justin Christopherson in Denver, Colorado. Just helping out with infrastructure when I can.
Thanks, Justin. Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet, coming to you from Altadena, California, and feeling good because I just launched a site.
Do you want to share with the world what it was?
Sure, upgrade from Drupal 7 of origamiusa.org.
Yes, the bug folder, the site maker. All right, and Jen's just in time. Maybe if she can get her sound going. Jen, can you do an introduction?
Sure. Jen Lampton joining from Oakland, California. Currently working on today's future backdrop release stuff.
Yep, that's right. We'll get to that in just a minute. Let's see. Sure, Jen, do we have any community updates? Sorry, I didn't give you a chance to prepare beforehand, but
I don't know.
we can come back to that.
I haven't looked at them.
All right, let's hit up first the kind of exciting or interesting topics that people have brought up in the forum. So under forum.backdropcms.org, under the events section, there's a post every week for discussion, issues to discuss during this meeting, and there were two issues filed this week. The first one was from BW Panda, and I'm going to share my screen to demonstrate this one because I think that would be the easiest way to go. Here we go. All right. So here's the issue that he's filed, and he's saying that when someone creates an issue against core, then they can choose from these four options. However, question and security issue allow you to open an issue, but then in the description of the issue, it basically tells you not to do what you're about to do. And apparently there's this new ability in GitHub to add links instead of adding new issues. So instead of having get started there, we could put links to external things instead. So bug report and feature request would stay the same, but then something like security would actually, report security issue would instead send you somewhere else telling you how to properly report a security issue. Yeah, I saw Jen gave the thumbs up to this. And so the links he's added included a couple links to the forum for how to and troubleshooting, request and feedback, security, Zulip, Contrib, backdropcms.org, the doc site, the forum site, and the events site. I think generally this is an excellent idea. I think, it looks like a lot and probably is, so we can trim down if needed. So definitely is open to discussion here. So yeah, there's also something about should we have, maybe question should stay as being an issue rather than sending people off to another place. Oh, he's already trimmed it down. So now new one is bug report, feature requests, support and feedback, security issue, live chat, community discussions. Somebody put a rocket on this, Indigo Zella. Yeah, and I see Tim and Jen both are giving up to this. It's issue 5687. I am also in full support. And these sorts of things, we're not actually merging them into core. We're merging them into the backdrop issues repository, which is totally separate from core. And I think that this is a great place for us to do like experimentation, and it's very low risk. So I would say, yeah, let's let's post our thoughts on if there needs to be any further changes. But I see this as an immediate improvement. The security issue is just not opening an issue is just a huge win, I think. I almost maybe one suggestion I might say is we should move security up to be the third option so that if people stop reading after the first couple, that they hopefully get to security, because we don't want them filing bug reports that are security issues. But looks great. Yeah, and what do you folks think? Ready to roll, or maybe we should wait a little bit on like discussion to figure it out?
I think
think
we
it's-
should merge it and iterate as needed. It's so much better. I love it.
Agreed.
All right, yeah, real simple. He removes two of the issue templates, question and security issue. Here's the contact list.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. Looks great.
Mm.
Maybe move security up to the third item. Let's iterate. Okay. Usually, discussion like this, it opened up 4 days ago. If this had been going on for a longer period of time, like 30, but considering it was a brand new idea, it obviously was better, and people seem generally in support of it, even though Indigo Zealous still, got some points here that maybe could use some refinement. If we can iterate quickly and give people that feedback cycle, that makes everybody happy, I think. So, great one, BW Panda. Thank you so much for filing that issue. And Indigo Zealous, thank you for your work coming up and improving this list. Okay, well, that was the first one. That was really great innovation. This next one is actually raised by Indigo Zealous. She wanted to discuss it this week. Add the static analyzer tool PHP stand to Backdrop core. And I'm curious to see how this one works. We've been talking about doing coder and PHP CS validation on our repositories for a very long time, but we have always had the problem of the rules for PHP CS need to be put somewhere, and they also need to be upgraded to a later version. So I'm curious to see how PHP Stan looks. I'm guessing it's a lot simpler in its analysis, but let's see. So PHP Stan and analyze error format for GitHub, no progress. Looks like we actually had to, it looks like it actually caught some things. So she fixed that in this one. Okay, and here's our rules. A .neon file, huh? First of all, if there's something that is related to our CI, we usually put that in the .github directory rather than in the core directory. The .github directory, one advantage, maybe not advantage, but a behavior of it is that anything that's in the .github directory doesn't get included in the downloadable package of Backdrop. So since something like PHP Stan is utilized specifically for our core code on GitHub, that would exclude it from being on other people's sites. Now, I could see some people making an argument that perhaps this would be useful to have on other people's sites as well as like a template, but I don't know. There's so many code analysis tools. I think that maybe we shouldn't make that assumption that everybody would be using the same one as core. But anyway, let's take a look here. So, okay, so this is a bunch of ignoring things, which I'm guessing we'd probably want to fix rather than ignore long term. But she's probably set this up so that I think, is this actually Indigozella? Yeah, okay. She set this up so that we can probably merge it with minimal changes to core. More ignore errors, lots of errors to ignore. What I'm looking for is, what will this actually do? Like what kind of analysis?
There's a last comment in the issue thread has a example run, if that's helpful.
Yeah, it would be helpful. And maybe we don't need to actually be looking over these issues like in real time like this, but I don't know. It's kind of fun.
I enjoy it.
All right, so here we go. PHP Stan. Classic GitHub Actions problem is that it collapses everything. So like actually finding the errors can be a little bit tedious. But I guess this is it. Is this the only error that came out? What I'm getting here, or what I'm interpreting from these results, is that PHP Stan isn't a syntax linter. It's not checking to see like if you've used tabs or spaces, or you've had your lines are too long, your code comments use slashes. It looks like instead what it's doing is it's validating much more complex logic, like are your parameters documented, and if you're inheriting classes from one thing to the other, does the child class have the same signature as the parent class? And if that's the case, I definitely see that there's some immediate benefit here, because
And we could add the other one later and we wouldn't be duplicating code
yeah,
sniffing
because
versus...
they're not overlapping purposes necessarily. Yep. Yeah, it's very cool. And let's see what the actual pull request, other than all the ignoring stuff, like this seems like this is the key thing. PHP Stan.neon is the configuration, but isn't there surely there's oh, here it is, the workflow. That's what I was looking for. So .github workflows, PHP Stan, static code analysis, install PHP, which I think we do this. We use the same setup PHP, I think, right now for, maybe we don't. I think we might use a matrix instead, but yeah, maybe we can look at this to make sure this is consistent with our other workflows. Check out the code, of course, that's always in all of these workflows, and then PHP Stan analyze. Where does PHP Stan come from? Indigozella probably described all of this, but this is my first time looking at it. Yeah, okay, so in Drupal land, PHP Stan is a library that's been added into the vendor directory. But in this pull request, I don't know. I don't see where it's actually coming from. Well, it probably works because it has output, but I don't understand where this came from. Well, anyway, maybe we don't need to solve that right now, but I think this looks like a really good idea, and it doesn't have the same caveats as PHP-CS, which I'm definitely still very interested in. I know Indigozella is very interested in as well. So considering her experience on both of these efforts, I'm feeling pretty good that there's probably not an overlap. Yeah, looks like a great idea. Thanks for picking this up, Indigozella. Looks like Gregory filed it all the way back in January, and Indigozella just started picking it up day before yesterday. So looks like a great idea. Yeah, I would say for starters, though, it looks like it may have imitated a little bit of the way that Drupal did it, because it put it in the core directory. I would say Drupal doesn't use GitHub, first of all, and so they probably don't have a particular CI only directory, maybe like we do. So I would say let's first start moving all of the related files into the .github directory, probably make a new directory in there for PHP Stan, and then nest everything inside of there. And then, yeah, let's go from there. Yeah, and I'm really curious how PHP Stan is actually getting installed, because I don't actually see it getting installed anywhere. Oh, it's right here. I see. It's part of this action. One of the available tools is PHP Stan. I love it. That's great. Yeah, super simple. That's fantastic. I love it when we can use simple workflows like this. And no composer dependency. Woo! Okay, that looks awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Indigozella, and thank you, BW Panda, for those two topics. Those are both great ideas. Okay. All right, let's talk about the release yesterday. So Backdrop 1.22.1 came out yesterday, which was kind of due. I wouldn't say overdue, but it was definitely due. I think we had like 30 some fixes in that issue, or in that release, so it was a big one. But what drove us to create the release was a new release of Drupal 7 yesterday that included security updates. So as usual, Backdrop coordinated the releases. It was a little bit shaky, but we were expecting it. So we created a corresponding pull request for the fix for Backdrop and merged that in and released Backdrop 1.22.1 as well as 1.21.6, which is the previous stable release. All of that is great. The security fix is matching and comprehensive to the equivalent Drupal one. And generally, it was a smooth release. But there was one problem, and that is that when I was doing the merging, when I cherry picked back into the 1.22 release, there's new update hooks in the 1.x branch that aren't in the 1.22 branch. And I accidentally included an update hook from core that is not supposed to be released until 1.23. Fortunately, the update hook doesn't do anything except for tell you that entity reference has been merged into core. But unfortunately, it tells you that it's in core now and that you can remove your existing copy, which is not true. So there's no damage that is done by the update hook being merged in there, but it's telling site owners incorrect information, which if they were to follow would be bad. And entity reference can't be removed from their sites because they're still only the contrib copy that they're running. So I think what that means we need to do is we need to rather quickly, maybe as soon as tonight, maybe tomorrow, do a follow-up release that empties out that update hook so that we don't have that message being reported to sites that are updating for the security release. It's not great. I hate it when we have to do these like whoopsie daisy follow-up releases, but I think it will be really beneficial to reduce the confusion and not have people accidentally breaking their site.
There are 2 pull requests ready. I'm not sure if you saw that, but there's one for each version to update.
Yeah, what's the issue number actually for oh, there it is. It's 5694. Yeah, it looks like Herb Duel's been in here, RG Piano, and great.
Argipiano reported following the instructions, deleting entity reference, and then just re-adding it back and not having any problems. So that's good news.
Yes. Yeah, that is what I hope to be the case, is that for any users that are on top of updating their sites and have the technical ability to update their site and then delete their entity reference directory, that they'll find out that their site breaks and then they can put entity reference right back. But yeah, I imagine that that's an assumption that won't always hold true, that some users might use the self-update, get the message, and then just delete their entity reference directory, not pay attention to what version it was or where it came from, and not be able to restore it quite so easily. So yeah, we'll want to fix that as quickly as possible. Yeah, thanks for the pull request, Jen. 5694 is the issue, and basically we're going to get on top of that as soon as possible. There's also 2 other RTBC issues that came in, so we may also pull those in since we are making this 122.2 follow-up fix. But anyway, in the meantime, 122.1 still encouraged because it's an excellent update, fixes lots of bugs, does patch a security issue related to image styles as well, and just don't delete entity reference if your site uses it. That's all. And if your site isn't using entity reference, I don't think it does anything. I don't think it even posts a message. It's only for sites that are using it. So for sites that aren't using entity reference, update.php runs and it just doesn't actually do anything at all. Jen, you look like maybe I spoke falsely.
No, I was just trying to figure out what's wrong with the pull request. Sorry if I was making
Oh,
a
okay.
face.
Yeah, that's the face of something is not quite right.
Yeah, I changed the branch in the GitHub UI, and I might need to fix it. Anyway, we'll figure it out.
All right. Let's see. Jen, while you have the floor, is there any update on? Sorry, we're going into 123 now. Is there any update on field group functionality, issue 647?
Nope. Course of action is to remove the vertical tab, and then it should be ready for review for inclusion.
Okay. Entity reference inclusion, issue 1301 is the main issue that is now marked fixed. We merged entity reference into core a couple of weeks ago. And now we have some follow-up issues that we are moving forward. HerbDuel has already filed filed a pull request for issue 5633, which moves term reference into its own module separate from taxonomy module. I don't see any reason why this needs to wait. It separates it out. I think just as long as we have the opportunity to review and test it, and we're on the same page, that this could happen simultaneously with the 123 release, because there's no harm in starting that process. So that issue 5633 again is ready for review, and some eyeballs would definitely be appreciated there. All right. Let's see. Tim, you already noted before the meeting started, no update on hiding titles from comments. Is that right? Okay, that's issue 4569. Are you looking for any help or anything on that issue?
So the current state was, I think we fixed all the tests. I wanted to go back and look at some of the work I did on the tests because I was kind of flailing about a bit to just make them work. And I'm concerned that I might have done something silly, even though the tests are passing. If anybody is so inclined and wants to look at what I did and just give me feedback, that would be okay. On the other hand, I kind of feel like I should, it might be good for me to look at it myself before anybody goes out of their way. So that's where it's at.
Okay, great. So help would be appreciated, but patience would also
Kind of both,
is a
yeah.
requirement for that.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Let's see. There's also this issue, allow custom validation messages on required fields. Gregory Klonos opened it quite some time ago, 5348. I picked up this issue and kind of carried it forward to the point that it is now. It does only need review. I think the pull request was totally ready to go even for 122. I think the one thing about it is that it's only an API enhancement, which isn't like, real big, exciting feature. And the second thing is that there's only one place in core that uses it in that pull request. So it's not a very exciting feature, but it's one that could prove useful. And it's a building block feature for better error handling in the future. So yeah, issue 5348 could use some review. That would be appreciated. Okay, there's another issue related to entity reference. Sorry, I should have picked this one up while we were talking about entity reference. I'll share my screen again. So this issue has been open for a long time, since 2016. And the solution for this, well, there were some complex solutions that we were trying to work with the way that the file entity works right now. We found out that really wouldn't work. And in the end, the simple solution here is that the problem is that files act differently from all other entity types. And the suggestion that is being made right now is that it should just work like other entity types. Like, rather than it being this snowflake entity class, it should work the same way as all the other ones. And the difference with files versus all other entities is that when you call the URI method on a file, it returns the path to the file itself. And every other entity type returns a page that contains the content of that entity. And this can be really applicable when dealing with files that have additional fields added to them. So if you add like a caption field, for example, to your image files, then linking to the visible version of the rendered file with the caption is only visible on this file/file ID page and not at the actual file itself. And so this is the scope of the change. It's basically, instead of pointing at the file path itself, it now points at the file page. And the reason for this historically is because file entities were added in the early versions of Backdrop, but then when we added media-like functionality later, that added files actually having their own pages as well. And so they didn't used to have pages, and now they do. And so the initial implementation worked with what we had, which was the path to the file itself. Yeah, relatively, small amount of changes in here. Unbelievably, there's only one test in the entire code base that actually is affected by this change. Yeah, the difference, let's see, what are we doing here? File URI. Oh, I see. So this is actually just checking that the path to the page is now, yeah, that the path to the page is what we expect. So basically reading this output. So this would be useful and allow the entity reference module to handle files better. Unfortunately, it is a backwards compatibility break. However, it's an API that within core is entirely unused. And so I think what core developers are hoping is that core itself and any modules coming from 777 are going to be not using this method in the first place, because everywhere in all of core and all legacy code coming from 777 doesn't use the URI method, it uses the URI property. And so the URI property actually points directly at the file. So the impact here is basically unknown. We don't think that it would have a large impact. And even for sites that are affected, what would end up happening is you might have a link to a file, and instead of viewing the file, it would actually take you to a page. It could happen in a bad way, though, for something like images, where if you were trying to retrieve the path to the image using the URI method, now it would return an HTML page, and that would display a broken image. So that is a possible risk here. So yeah, this is one of these issues where we don't know. Like, the backwards compatibility seems to be really difficult to achieve because this is a major inconsistency in our API. And it appears as though making this change would have a minimal impact because the API is not used frequently. But really, the effect on other modules is unknown. I think maybe one thing we can do that we haven't is we could run a report or an analysis on all of Contrib and see if any Contrib module is affected by this change. And that would give us some idea of like the scope of the amount of trouble that we may cause with this. Yeah, I'm curious if there's any thoughts or feedback from everybody here. Nobody?
This one's above my pay grade.
Makes sense.
I think we
Makes
should do
sense.
it, but do it in my minor release and
Oh yeah, for sure.
document it so that anyone who is using anything similar has a chance to adapt.
Yeah, I'm feeling very much the same, that put it in a minor release. Putting it in 123 in particular, I think, is a really good opportunity, because if there ever was a justification for changing an API, it's adding an incredibly powerful feature, right? And so adding entity reference and also saying there is one API change required by this massive enhancement in functionality, it's a trade-off that makes it seem worth it. And so I'm really hoping that will help take the edge off anybody that actually might be affected by this. But I'm also hoping that this will affect very few people in the first place. So yeah, that's the state of that thing, that issue. I would love it. I mean, this is us, the developers, thinking this is the best way forward, though, and not our users. And so this is one of those issues where if we could get the voice of end users, non-developers, posting their thoughts about this, that would be helpful. Yeah, but I always feel like those people, they put their trust in us, and they only get the end result. They're not a part of the sausage making that is core development. So anyway, we'll continue to be thoughtful about that. The analysis, I think, would be very helpful. And if anybody has any thoughts about long-term consequences or anything that could come of that we haven't thought of, it would be useful to post your concerns into that issue, 2300. Okay, that's it for the 123 update. Again, 122.1 came out yesterday. We're working on getting all the upstreams updated and everything. I believe that with 122.2 coming out imminently, some of those upstreams may wait now for that to change. And 122.2 will be out perhaps as soon as this evening, and then tomorrow at the latest. So that's the plan. And that's it. Do you guys have any other items or
Sure.
topics?
I have a small one I'd just like to mention. We talked about it briefly in the outreach meeting. We have another sort of beginner or first-time contributor event coming up. And something I noticed in the issue queue recently was we had a couple of issues that were tagged as first-time issues, good first issues, that people removed the tags for reasons that, like in one case where I had tagged something good first issue because it was a pretty simple issue, and I think somebody else removed that tag because there was no decision to implement this particular change. And so they felt like, I think their logic was, well, we don't want a first-time contributor to write a PR, and then if we're not going to do it. And I feel very differently, like that let's go ahead and write the PR, and then we'll have the discussion about whether or not to incorporate it. And I guess my only point is this, is that rather than sort of going back and forth and tagging and untagging issues, that my preference would be, and we don't need a rule, I'm just going to ask that people consider this, that if you see something that like Jan or I, who frequently work with first-time contributors, have tagged as a good first issue, if you disagree with that, just make a comment in the issue rather than removing the tag, because we might have very specific reasons why we thought that was a good first issue. And we're the ones that are more likely to be actually working with the first-time contributors. And so I do appreciate the feedback, and there sometimes an issue changes. So we tag it good first issue, and then it changes and it's no longer a good first issue. And I appreciate people letting us know that, but maybe it's better if we don't just untag them without, just letting us know, so we can, at least that's my thought. If anybody has any feedback on that, I'm happy to talk about it. Thought that would be worth mentioning at a developer meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I may even be guilty of that that action, because I think that the people that are most likely to remove those labels are our most frequent reviewers. People that are coming in and really active in the issue queues, like checking in on things. And yeah, issues can become very dynamic, where they sound simple at the beginning and then they
Right.
become complex. But yeah, I think that that's a good idea. That as far as I'm not sure about it, but would you encourage everybody to add the first time
Yeah,
issue?
I don't feel like I'm asking anybody to not add the issue. I'm more concerned about removing it, especially when somebody else added it. If you, for example, added a first-time issue contributor and then had second thoughts, by all means, I think that would be an appropriate time to remove it. But if somebody else has added it, rather than just unadding it, just maybe post an argument why you think. But we do need, so that's the other point on this issue, is that we have actually cleared out a lot of good first issues from the issue queue. And
they're
we
probably
actually,
the fastest moving issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have a first-time contributor event coming up. So if anything, we need more issues, and I welcome anybody to tag them. Is that right, Jen? Would you agree? Yeah. She shook her head. For those.
Yes,
This
sorry.
if we merge this PHP Stan issue, that will make a whole bunch more really great first time issues, because eliminating all of the exceptions, every single exception could be its own first time issue. Or we could have a big meta issue that's like, try to check off everything that isn't correct right now to get the exception list down to empty.
I imagine every exception is probably going to be a meta issue of all of the places in core that throw that exception.
I think the way it looks right now, that it's actually one line in each exception. It seems like it's like saying ignore this exception in this file. So yeah,
that'll be easier to fix.
because I think it's per file exceptions. Yeah. So yeah, that could be nice. It might not be one line, but I think it is one file at least. So.
But that's not like the 100 times that method is called. It's just once that we have to fix it. I don't know how PHP Stan works. I don't know if it's
it's probably varies depending on the complexity.
We'll figure it out.
Regarding just all tag usage, we have the tags documented somewhere, right? About how tags should be used.
I know that does exist. I haven't looked at it recently. Jen, you might be more familiar than me.
I regularly don't remember where that documentation exists.
It's under the
On the doc
contributing.
side, and it's at the top, visible at the top level of the right side menu. There's, I think the line is something like using the issue queue.
Adding labels to issues. Here, I'm going to drop a link in Zulip and
This
But
might,
But it's a good point. We could just add some notes on that page. I found the page really quickly. I just searched for backdrop CMS, how to add tags or labels, and Google showed it to me right away. Although I'm not sure.
also, can
Go
we
ahead.
just notice how beautiful this page is with all of these labels on here?
yeah, here, I'll share my screen so people can see what we're talking about. Yeah, okay. Adding labels to issues. Yeah, excellent. Corresponding code coloring that matches the coloring that we use within GitHub itself. Yeah, it looks amazing.
Oh, okay, except quick issue, which this raises another issue, which is I just found this page on backdropcms.org without all of that. And we still have some duplication. And the way we're handling that is just on a case-by-case basis. Is that right? So should I just flag this?
Yeah, unpublish that page and we can add a redirect to the correct page.
Okay.
So yeah, just using the redirect UI on backdropcms.org. Redirect it to the docs.
Oh, okay, and it's the same. Can I assume the same path? I can double check it.
No, just use the path that is
Right.
in the chat.
Got it.
Well,
Okay.
where I was going with this, Tim, is that this description here should be updated to
Yes.
maybe we should make a whole category here for good first issue and the way that it's used so that we can better describe our expectations around how to use this label.
Yeah.
And then
just-
on top of that, I think that we should perhaps update this is the README for the issue tracker. Link over to that page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and also this code helpers needs to go. That was some experiment that has never been used. So it really bothers me that there's like 8 issues or something like that, and we've never bothered to try to fix them. So a little love on our README for the issue tracker.
Okay.
Okay. All right, folks. Anything else? Okay, we're at the top of the hour. Thanks so much for joining us again this week. As I said, there'll be more activity happening imminently for the 122.2 release, and yeah, that'll be here before next time. So thanks again.